fuck am I watching right now? Hello, and welcome back to the True Crime Guys podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Michael.
How we doing? We're back. We have an interesting case of a woman's descent into madness. She was very disturbed and went on a rampage in the final day of her life. We found that case, however, because, I mean, it's this one that, I don't know. I'd never heard of her. She's kind of flies under the radar, and most people have heard of her through a much larger case, the Tylenol Murders, which we just covered on Sandu.
Yes.
Strange and unexplained, if you ain't nasty.
That's right. That's right. She was a suspect in the Tylenol murders because she dabbled in doing some poisoning herself with arsenic and whatnot.
Very poorly, I might add.
Yeah, very poorly. Apparently, she couldn't
not
cook,
a great poisoner by any means.
No.
She was actually one of the worst poisoners I've ever seen. Actually, she is the worst poisoner I've ever seen.
She's the worst poisoner ever.
Let's just throw some arsenic into these fucking cookies, and they're gonna taste like ass, and no one's gonna eat them.
Okay, how do you fuck up Rice Krispie treats? Because that's what she used. How the hell do you fuck up Rice Krispie treats, Lauren?
Exactly. Like, you throw some arsenic in them, which has a flavor. Like the whole idea is you're supposed to poison people with like unflavored, unscented stuff.
Right. What a rookie poisoner.
She really was.
Come on. Yeah. So she was such a bad cook. Thankfully, that no one actually died from her horrible arsenic Rice Krispie treats.
I have a feeling even if there wasn't arsenic in them, they still would have been shitty Rice Krispie treats. She
probably
was that bad at cooking.
Yeah. Well, we got it. She had an incredible life, incredibly interesting for one thing.
Yeah.
But incredibly, what's the word I'm looking for? She was very entitled. She grew up with a lot of money. She didn't have to do a lot for herself. So why would you expect her to know how to cook? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She don't know nothing about this stuff. She don't know nothing about this
stuff. And
stuff.
she had severe mental illness. I mean, that's not...
That too?
I was making light of that or making fun of it, but it just got worse. And I think it was partially, her parents were partially to blame for not getting her help sooner.
A big part.
Yeah, and she just kept getting worse, and they just kept bailing her out and, using their money to just get her through another day without seeking treatment. And I think later on, they finally started to try and get her help, but she was almost too far gone by then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like they didn't want this stain on their family reputation, their family bloodline. It's like, so they just kept ignoring it.
She was an inconvenience to them, for sure.
No doubt. No doubt.
So,
well, all right.
Let's get into it.
Let's do it, man.
News that something awful happened at Hubbard Woods Elementary School spread quickly through this quiet Winnetka neighborhood. Parents rushed to the school not knowing what to expect. Police soon confirmed their worst nightmares.
She apparently just walked in the classroom, went past the teacher that was there, indicated that the gun was real, and began firing at random.
He's my baby of 8. It's very upsetting to everybody around here.
It's terrifying. Your legs can't carry you to the school. They give out. And you don't know how you're going to get to the front door to find out what's going on.
I have my children at home, locked up on the 2nd floor.
It was a day-long violent event that shook Chicago and the world. A deranged armed woman went into a North Shore grade school classroom, the first attack of its kind, and that took and changed lives.
There was a warning, and no one paid attention.
If it could happen, something like that could happen in a town like Winnetka. It could happen anywhere.
They are mentally disturbed, but the ability to get your hands on a weapon, and particularly the weapons they use, is unbelievable. I can't believe that a country such as ours allows it.
All right, so our case this week is Laurie Dann. And as we mentioned, we learned about her through the Tylenol Murders case because she was briefly looked at by the FBI as a suspect in the poisonings due to the fact that she had, as we mentioned, dabbled in poisonings herself rather poorly. Mm-hmm. She was looked at and then quickly dismissed as a suspect. Not nearly savvy enough to pull off something like the Tylenol murders, first of all.
Oh,
and
God,
then
no.
like where she was in the timeline of her life didn't match up at all. At the time that the Tylenol poisonings happened, she hadn't poisoned anyone yet. She was,
Right.
I believe, in a better time of her life. She was
Now-
like married. She had just gotten married and stuff like that.
Right. It's basically just her proximity to the crimes and then what she later was convicted of that made her a suspect, I think.
Yeah, I haven't.
You know what I'm saying?
been
Because
born and
she's in the
raised
Chicago.
but
Yes.
yeah, but the
Which is
timeline
where
just
the
didn't
murders
add
took
up as
place.
far as what she was up to at that time.
Exactly. And like you said, I mean, she wouldn't have gotten away with this anyways. She was just with her mental disorders and whatnot. I feel like they would have given her away.
Yeah.
At some point in time. I just don't think you'd be able to. Although she was able to pass any polygraph test.
True.
Which we'll get to.
Polygraph
It's pretty,
proof, dude. She could.
Yes.
She is a prime
Well,
example of
because-
why those things are flawed. If you truly believe the lies you're telling, it seems like you can go ahead and pass one of those things. If you're just
Right.
stone cold with your heart rate.
Yeah. And she was someone who did because she honestly believed what she thought. Whatever her truth was, she was 110% convinced of it. So when she went in to take this polygraph, easy peasy, man. She's going to pass it every time, which is why they need to be thrown out.
Yeah, and that was a hell of a bitch for her husband at the time, wasn't it? Because she was doing things to him that were
Yes.
horrendous, stabbing him with
Yes.
ice picks, and then just going in and lying about it and getting like
Right.
passing polygraphs. Meanwhile, he's failing the polygraph.
He's
So fucked up.
Right. I wonder if they told him that she passed the polygraph. That would be crazy.
I would
right?
hope that they wouldn't tell him that until after he'd already done his, because that would definitely screw yours up.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
No pressure, but she passed hers, by the way.
Yeah. Again.
Right. So let's get
Oh,
into
man.
her. Laurie Dann
All
was
right.
born Laurie Wasserman on October 18th, one day after my birthday in 1957, well before
Look at
my
that.
birthday, 30 years
Well
before
before.
me.
Yeah.
She shares a birthday with Chuck Berry, Lee Harvey Oswald, another true crime interesting person, Zac Efron, and JCVD, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh man. What a hero of mine in the 90s.
Was he really? You were big into
Yeah.
blood sport and all that? I never really got into
Yeah.
those.
And Kickboxer? You don't remember that? You didn't watch those
I mean, I remember
movies?
them being on TV, but just I never got super into them. I don't know.
They're all the same movie. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the
just
same plot.
Guys flying through the air in slow motion, like
Yeah.
blood and spit flying, right?
Right. Well, it's like
Spinning
you
kicks.
got JCVD, right? Who's at the top of his game. He's kicking everybody's ass, and then he meets this one opponent who's better than him, just naturally, and they're mean too, right? They're evil too, obviously. They kick his ass, and then he spends the next half of the movie training until he's ready to go kick their ass.
It's like Rocky, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. It's the same plot.
Yeah.
And then once he gets there, he gets his ass kicked for like the first, 5 rounds, and then he finally shows up.
Yeah.
And starts kicking ass.
Yeah. The Karate
After his-
Kid, same
Yeah.
scenario.
Same thing, man. It's all the same thing. But they were new in the 90s, and we liked them.
We should make a movie,
My-
some sort of combat movie where the villain is actually just a really nice. He's like overly nice. It's like, God, I fucking hate this guy. He's so fucking nice. And he kicks my ass.
Right, and he does
And
win
then
at
the
the
main
end.
character becomes the evil guy because the other guy's so nice.
Oh,
and you're
right,
following
right,
that.
right. Because
He's
there
like
has
trying
to be
to blow
a
his
yin and a
knees
yang.
out and stuff with dirty kicks.
Yeah, that's right. And then the evil guy at the beginning, who was actually good, he wins.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. Just spitballing.
It's like
here.
Megamind. It's like Megamind. You ever seen that movie?
Yes.
Where the villain
I have children,
intern.
so of course I've seen that.
Right. I love Megamind. Underrated animated movie
that's a
right
good
there
flick.
by DreamWorks. Yeah, it is.
All right, so Laurie Dann, born in 1957. Her parents were Norman and Edith, and she had an older brother who was 5 years her senior. And her family, as you've brought up, was quite wealthy. They were doing quite well. They had a home in Highland Park, specifically Glencoe in Highland Park, Illinois, which is a very affluent area.
Yeah,
One
North
of the more
Chicago.
affluent areas in all of the Midwest, right on
Right.
Lake Michigan. Beautiful. If you've seen a lot of movies from the 90s, it might feature this area. I think Home Alone was this Glencoe area was the setting for that film as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that puts it into perspective.
Right. And
that
like I
home is
remember,
massive.
remember Kevin's older brother Buzz talking about nothing ever remotely even dangerous happens in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yeah.
Laurie was a very quiet child. She was very good at spelling, but an average student beyond that. Kind of an interesting
Okay.
little tidbit there.
Yeah, really.
Throughout life, when people would approach her, she just seemed like she had issues from birth almost. She just never really She had no social skills, and it came back to bite her time and time again. She never really had any friends, because when people would approach her, she would, I don't know if she froze up or what would happen, but people would come up and say hi to her and try to introduce themselves, and she would just give them a blank stare and not respond. Not the best way to make friends.
No, not at all. Not at all. I wonder what that, I mean, you think this is just her mental disorders appearing very early on? Her hesitancy to interact. Maybe she was on the spectrum a little bit too, and her parents didn't know.
Maybe.
I mean, because like I said, they were in such denial about all of her mental disorders. We really don't know what
she was a child in the 60s, so I mean, who knows how they were evaluating children that were a little off or different than other children.
They weren't.
Right. Yeah, just more spankings maybe.
Right.
Or with her parents and their money, maybe just ignore her. I don't know.
More distractions. They just wanted to pawn her off, because I know she spent a lot of her summers at summer camp. And I mean the whole summer. It wasn't like summer camp is nowadays where you send your kid off for a week maybe at most. No, I mean she went to like summer camps for 8 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
As a child, like through elementary school.
That seems like a good solution as a parent, kind of, to, make her some friends and get her out in social circles and whatnot. But I don't know if it was possible with her at the time.
But to me, I don't know. I might be speaking out of turn, but it almost seemed like they wanted rid of her. Yeah. They wanted her to be out of the house as much as possible, especially in comparison to her very successful, very, well-adjusted older brother who was 5 years older than her. Like, he did well in school. He had great people skills. He represented the family well, right? But Laurie, on the other hand, was very different. She didn't follow those footsteps, and she had her issues. And I feel like the less she was around, the less it reminded her parents of her shortcomings in their mind.
It did feel that way. It felt like they wanted to keep her in the background.
Yeah, exactly.
She had very few friends growing up. Her peers described her as shy and quiet. In her early teens, her parents actually had her get plastic surgery done on her face by a high-end plastic surgeon. As we mentioned, they had a lot of money.
Yes.
I couldn't find anything as to what exactly was done. Did you hear?
Yes, actually, I did find it. I was going to bring this up. She actually had 2 surgeries done.
Okay.
In her first surgery was done, like you say, in her early teens, I would say junior high. And she had, I don't know how they do this, but she had her ears worked on, and they were basically moved closer to her head. I guess her ears stuck out as a kid.
Yeah.
And she was very self-conscious of it. And so her parents actually had surgery, and she had like bandages around her head, and she went to school like that for a while, and kids made fun of her for that. But once they were removed, I guess her ears laid more flat on her head.
Yeah.
And then later on, after she graduated high school, she had nose surgery. She had a nose job done, actually, to reduce the wideness of her nose. I mean, and that's all before I think she's 20 years old.
Yeah, definitely. You can tell it was a high-end surgeon, because when you see pictures of her, she doesn't look like, a lot of times you see people that have had plastic surgery and it's quite obvious right away. Like, oh, they've had work done. It didn't, she looked fairly normal. A little bit of crazy in her eyes, which 70s. Is not surprising considering her mental state.
Right.
But yeah, her nose looked pretty normal to me. And the ear thing, I get it. Like, for girls, that like the ears sticking out past the hair is an unfortunate look at times.
Right. And someone who's already shy and feels different and awkward than other people, it could compile pretty quickly. So, but yeah.
That being said, it's an interesting thing to teach your children, that you can just buy your problems away, Oh, there's something about yourself that you don't like and others make fun of. Let's just throw some money at it and make it go away, which was always her parents' solution.
I mean, were her parents doing it for her, or were they doing it for them? That's another thing.
That's an argument that can be had, for sure. Yeah.
Because that's a lot of money to spend on a teenager who hasn't even, she's not even fully developed. She's not even who she's going to be yet.
Yeah, she might grow into those years if you give her a chance.
Right. And you're already changing her body at such a young age.
Teens are awkward. Like, there's kind of like how old people parts keep growing. Teens haven't grown into certain parts yet. Like, teens need to grow into their ears and their nose sometimes, whereas as you get older, the nose and the ears seem like they keep growing.
Yeah. Yeah. That is an unfortunate fact of humanity.
Yeah, I know I was awkward as fuck at 14. You know, I was as tall as I am now, and I weighed like 112 pounds.
Right.
At 6'2". You know,
it takes a while to grow into your frame.
Exactly.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that's part of humbling you and making you a well-adjusted person. Is like you are not perfect. It is what people are going to pick on you for certain things. I was called El Scranio for a while there.
Right.
Which has just motivated me to lift more as an adult. Still to this day, I still wear that chip on my shoulder. So
there you go.
So Laurie would go on to attend Highland Park High School before transferring to New Trier High School in Glencoe, which is a very high-end high school.
Mm-hmm.
And she tried out for the cheerleading squad while at New Trier and didn't make the cut.
Yeah, I could see that. She wasn't really part of that squad. You know what I mean? I think she wanted that, and I think she wanted that for the respect of her parents.
Yeah.
But that just wasn't in the cards for her.
I don't know how that works. Cheerleading, I don't know how much it is like Bring It On. That's my reference point for cheerleading.
Classic cheerleading.
I think unlike most sports where the coaches and the staff at the school decide who makes the team and whatnot, it seems as though cheerleading is different in that like the cheerleaders definitely seem like they have a say because there's, you know, the small squad and like,
right.
It seems like if they don't want a certain girl in, that girl might not get in, even if they are decent at cheerleading.
It's definitely the most popularity based sport in high school, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're good enough, it doesn't matter your lack of friends or your social status or whatever for almost every other sport. But for cheerleading, it's like we have a certain image to keep up here.
Mm-hmm.
At least it feels that way.
Yeah.
At least it feels that way.
If you were a cheerleader, fill us in on how are people on the squad picked? How did that work? I'm fascinated.
Exactly. It's a weird little club.
I found it interesting that Laurie during this time also worked part-time at a Kmart. You know, like her parents coming from so much money. I thought that was a good sign. Like, hey, you know, still making her make some money for herself and not just handed everything. But maybe that was also them just trying to get her out of the house.
Yeah, it's a little of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little of both, I'm
we
sure.
We could be being unfair to her family too, to her parents. I know they've been ridiculed relentlessly for the way this thing plays out, the way that Laurie's life turned out. And they're, I'm sure, not entirely to blame, you know.
But they are largely, though. I mean, they ignored a lot of things.
Yeah.
They really did. I don't know. There's a lot of warning signs early on that were pushed under the rug.
Yeah. Yeah, and you'll see as we go through this. So she did always seem to do okay with the opposite sex. You know, she had frequent boyfriends, but little to no female friends throughout her life.
Mm-hmm.
She would graduate from New Trier High School in 1975 with average grades and went off to college at Drake University in Iowa. And she had no shortage of opportunity to go to different colleges, whatever college she wanted to go to due to her parents' wealth. That had to have been it because it was not grades based. She would end up at Northwestern. She would end up at Arizona State, Drake, all these colleges that a lot of people would love to go to, but you know, either don't have the grades or the financial ability to do so.
Yeah, that speaks highly to her parents' success, financial success, because like you say, she was just an average student at best with all these social and, you know, communication hangups as well.
Yeah, it's not like she was in a bunch of clubs and committees and things like that either.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's odd.
Shortly after arriving at Drake University, a girl from New Trier High School noticed Laurie walking around the campus and approached her and said, "Hey, I recognize you from New Trier High School. You're also at Drake." You know, they try to become her friend, and they began walking to class together.
Right.
So there you go.
Which is normal.
Yeah.
It's refreshing when you go to a college and you see somebody that you went to high school with.
Yeah.
I know, like when go ahead.
I was just going to say there's a story about this girl later on, though, and how much she meant to Laurie, which was nothing. So,
right.
It's just kind of an interesting thing.
Like you said, I mean, they're both in a new pond, right? They're fishing or thrown into a new pond, and they were familiar with each other. So it's like you're reaching out for any type of familiarity when you first go to college. I know I was lucky when I went to college. I had a few close friends that went to the same college as me at the same time, and without them, it would have been extremely awkward experience.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to be the only person like walking around campus with not talking to anybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, in the more recent times, it gets harder and harder to make new friends. It really does. With like the further technology advances, the more people don't need friends.
Yeah,
They're
in
just
public,
like,
you feel like you're interrupting someone, right? Because they're always inevitably staring at their phone. So, like,
yes,
there's not as much opportunity for them, to catch someone just looking around and come up and, hey, how you doing? I'm so-and-so.
I'm serious, man. Making new friends, if you really think about it. When's the last time you made a really good new friend?
Yeah, that you weren't forced to be around. Like me and you were forced into a truck together for 10 hours a day for weeks on end. And here we are.
Yeah. But then again, we could have been on our phones a lot of that time too, which we weren't.
Yeah, true.
I mean, even people like that. I've trained people and I've been with people for that long, and we didn't become that good of friends.
Very true.
A lot of it has to do with their perspective.
Yeah. So the two of these girls, Laurie and this other girl that went to the same schools as her, would frequently walk together to class during her freshman year. However, this would end soon, as this would be Laurie's only year at Drake University. She would, after her freshman year, transfer to Arizona State. Must be nice. That's quite a privilege to just be able to, I'm tired of this one. I'm going to go to another high-end school.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go to the other side of the country.
Yeah.
Forget this.
Yeah.
Get a fresh start.
Yeah, and at this point, she had decided what she wanted to do with her life following college, and that was to become a high school teacher when she graduated.
Oh, okay.
Which thankfully she never would become, because that would be interesting.
That would be awful.
Yeah,
that would be a disaster.
Yeah,
honestly.
unless obviously she got treatment and fixed her issues.
Right,
which she never did.
No.
While at Arizona State, she would pledge to the Alpha Delta Pi sorority. And in her junior year at Arizona State, she began dating a fellow student who would pop back up later in this case, thanks to Laurie. He was an undergrad at the pre-med program, and she was convinced that he was the one, quote unquote, and began demonstrating controlling behavior towards him, alarming behavior, and obviously being put off by this and not having the time for this. Being a pre-med student, you have very little time.
Right.
He doesn't have time to deal with this controlling girlfriend. And he would end up breaking up with her, and she would struggle following this breakup, and this seemed to just further her decline.
Do you think she was after him a little bit because he was destined to be a doctor?
I'm sure that didn't hurt. I'm sure that did not hurt.
I'm sure that also probably looked really good to her parents, who I'm sure she was in constant contact with.
Yeah.
They're thinking, oh, thank God, someone else to take care of Laurie, so we don't have to.
Yeah. Perfect, right? A doctor.
Yeah.
In the summer of 1980, Laurie, with the help of her parents, packed up her things and moved back to Glencoe, Illinois, getting away from the situation, getting out of Arizona, which reminded her of her, boyfriend that broke up with her.
Right. She loved to run from her shit. That's one thing she would do. If something bad happened, she dips out.
Yeah. And her parents, with the help of her parents.
Pattern.
She always had that ability because her parents could just throw money at the situation.
That's right.
Most people would be like, you're enrolled at Arizona State. We're paying a boatload of money for you to go there. You better see this thing through.
Exactly. At least finish off this semester or, this year. But no, they always were there to bail her out. They were her perfect little safety net. Yeah. She could always just let go.
Yep. Yep. She then enrolls at another nice college, Northwestern University, with the goal of finishing the new credits she needed for her degree in education. However, she was still struggling with that breakup with the pre-med student back in Arizona, and she was not in a good place. And she would drop out of Northwestern without a degree and not return to college for many years at this point.
Yeah. There's always a reason not to do something, right?
Yep.
Ain't that how the saying goes? Laurie took advantage of every single one.
Yep.
That's for sure.
Then in 1981, she was unsure about what to do with her future, and she would take a job as a waitress at the Green Acres Country Club in Northbrook, Illinois. And while serving tables there, she would meet a man named Russell Dann, who went by Rusty. And that's how we'll refer to him throughout the rest of this.
Right.
Rusty was, a prestigious member of this community. His family were very wealthy, even more wealthy than Laurie's family. They owned a large insurance company and very well off. And he was a good-looking, dark-haired man that she just caught his eye, I guess, while waitressing at this place. And they would begin dating. Several months later, Rusty would propose to Laurie while they were vacationing in Boca Raton.
A fun fact about this country club that she just so happened to get a job at, it's a all Jewish country club, which I found out.
And no longer open. I looked it up on Google Map Street View or whatever.
Yes.
It's closed.
Yeah. But it was very prestigious place.
Yeah.
Back in the day, like I said, very wealthy. You were wealthy if you even were a member here.
Yeah.
Which, like most country clubs, but this one was top of the top. You know what I mean? I just can't help but think that maybe her parents helped get her in over there.
Trying to find her a man, right?
Yeah. It's like,
That's a good
I know
point.
the perfect place. And not only that, I mean, worst case scenario, you get amazing tips.
Yeah.
I mean, you're at a country club, right? So there's no harm, no foul. But she ended up meeting her husband there, which was her plan all along, probably.
Yeah. So they would go on to get married in September of 1982. And unfortunately for Rusty, they would have a small wedding because he had a very large circle of friends and large family. And he always wanted the big extravagant wedding, but at the request of the Wassermans, Laurie's family, they requested that, they keep this a smaller affair for Laurie's sake because she had no friends, no bridesmaids to speak of. She didn't even have a sister that she could have in her bridal party, and she had no friends. So it would just be very embarrassing for the Wassermans to have her up there with nobody, and then him having all these groomsmen and thousands of people looking on.
Yeah, that would have been awkward.
Yeah.
Right? He's up there with like 4 groomsmen and she's got nobody behind
You'd think her parents could have just bought her some fake friends for a little bit for the wedding.
Can't you just pay
I'm surprised
some?
they didn't just fix that problem too with money.
Right? You don't got like some distant cousins or something you could throw in there? Like,
or just anybody, dude. Just put an ad out. Like, we need some beautiful women to pretend to be a friend of my daughter's for one day.
Right. Yeah. Yep. You got to be able to fit into these dresses.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised. But also, I'm not surprised because having a small wedding obviously is a lot cheaper. And, I'm sure they were very money conscious people, even though they were wealthy.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. They threw $15,000 at the newlyweds following the wedding, which is, I think, the equivalent of like $40,000 now.
Jesus.
Yeah. And you got to think that plus what his parents gave him, which I can't imagine was nothing because they were even more wealthy than the Wassermans. And then whoever else attended, those envelopes.
Yeah. What a start off.
Must be nice, right?
Yeah, seriously. Golly, I'd take my wedding gifts and go buy a home.
Well, they did. They went on to buy quite a nice starter home, I guess you could call it. Most people's dream home, but for them, a starter home.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
It'll do for now.
Yeah, they would buy a large, beautiful home in a nice area. And however, things seemed on the surface to be going well for Laurie. Her mental illness was only getting worse during this time. Rusty would come home from long days at the insurance company to find the house a mess, no dinner, and Laurie watching TV, no job, just kind of wandering around the house, lounging, and doing odd things as well. Like she would start doing laundry, do the washing part, and then not transfer them to the dryer. She would then take the wet clothes and then like stash the clothes in different drawers around the house.
Oh my God.
Allowing them to just mildew, ruining the furniture, like the dresser she put it in. You just have mold and shit now.
That may be the worst crime that she committed, honestly.
She shot a child.
It's not funny. It's not funny. I know. But that is fucking awful. That should have been a sign right there.
Yeah.
Like, who folds wet clothes? Come on. Don't.
Yeah.
But to be fair, she never did anything for herself.
No.
She was probably never taught to do any of these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if she had chores growing up or what, but I mean, I doubt it. I'm pretty sure most of it was taken care of for her.
Yeah. She would also store her makeup in the microwave. So
yeah,
when old Rusty had no dinner when he got home, he went to go microwave something. He couldn't even do that.
What the fuck is your lipstick doing in here? What is this? Yeah. What do you? I don't like putting it on cold.
Right. She's believed to have had severe obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yes.
Which,
not trying to make light of it.
No, I mean, I don't want to say scoffed at, but it's kind of overlooked anymore because there's so many other mental illnesses going on. But that can absolutely be a brutal thing to go through when your mind just won't let you ever enjoy anything. And it's just constant, like thinking whatever you do is the wrong thing, or like, I have to do this. I have to. You saw it in As Good as It Gets, Jack Nicholson, where she was a bit like that with the light switches and like just constantly feeling like she has to do this or else something bad is going to happen. That was her whole life, was like that.
Also, it brings to mind Matchstick Men by Nicolas Cage. I've mentioned that movie a few times, but Nicolas Cage has bad OCD and Tourette's in that movie, and it's a shining example.
It can be debilitating for sure if it's not treated.
Absolutely,
it just gets worse too.
And it's kind of frustrating how much the term OCD is thrown around. Like, people make such light of, like, oh, I'm just so OCD about that. It's like, no, you're not. You just like that a certain way. Like, you're not OCD. Like, there's people who literally can't go through life without doing things like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's a big
And
difference.
I think it's a very understandable
downplayed.
illness too, because I mean we all have our little quirks. We've mentioned how I like having the volume on even numbers and things like that. And there's things I do, especially like when watching football, you know, or like I have my little quirks. I guess you call them superstitions, but they're
I was about to say
they're a slighter level, you know, of OCD, I suppose. But
right.
There was a moment as a kid where it started to go down a bad road for me, where I remember a specific day at the grocery store where I felt like I had to touch every label on this aisle of cans or whatever, and like freaked my mom out.
Oh,
yeah. But
wow. The can aisle too. That's the most stocked aisle. Jeez.
Right.
There's so many different things there.
I had
couldn't do it like
got
on the
to the
cereal
end and
aisle.
I realized I missed one. I had to run back and touch it. I was just like, oh boy.
I forgot the chicken
Can't
noodle
let
with
this
stars.
get worse than it is.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you made it out of it, though. I'm
Yeah.
glad you recovered for the most part.
Yeah. So also during this time, during the early part of their marriage, on one occasion, Rusty convinced Laurie to accompany him to an end of a year holiday party for his insurance company. She didn't usually go to these things, which bothered him. You know, he had all these events and stuff that he wanted to take his young, pretty wife to, and she never wanted to. But on this occasion, he took her to this party, and while at the party, the girl that Laurie had gone to both high school and Drake University with, that they walked together in class and stuff, happened to be at this party with her husband. Just a strange coincidence. They keep running into each other somehow. Their paths keep crossing, and this girl immediately recognizes Laurie, and you know they go up, and the husbands introduce each other and whatever, and the woman's like, hey, I remember you. We went to college together. We used to walk together and blah, blah, blah. And Laurie just that same blank stare, just no response.
That's so creepy.
Yeah.
That's so creepy. I mean, what's going through her head? You think she just doesn't know what to say? But also she's spending a lot of time alone right now.
Yeah.
And like, if you spend a lot of time alone in your own head, you know what I mean? She's at home putting her makeup in the microwave.
I think she lost
stuff,
touch with reality, and the real world felt almost fake to her at that point. Like,
yeah. And I think this is what she thought she wanted. I think she thought she wanted to be a housewife and a mother like her mother.
Mm-hmm.
But when she had all that time to just sit and be by herself, it just made everything worse. It's like she got more antisocial.
Yeah.
And it just, I think she honestly didn't know how to respond in a lot of these situations. That's why she didn't want to go. Probably gave her extreme anxiety being at these places.
Yeah, you're right. And I didn't think about that, but that might have been the worst thing for her, to just be get married to a wealthy man and just have the ability to just sit around the house all day and not have interaction.
Just be in her own mind.
She needed more interaction with people.
Yes,
she was spiraling.
Constant.
Yeah,
she needed to practice those skills.
Yeah,
it's just like, I hear so many people like, oh, I'm just awkward. I'm socially awkward. I'm like, well, you don't go in social situations. If you don't go in these situations,
you expect to be good at anything without any practice. I mean,
exactly. That's like never putting on a pair of rollerblades and be like, oh, I'm just not a good rollerblader.
Yeah.
Well, you never done it before.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's simple.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of the other quirks that she displayed of her disorder, she would, tap her foot at every stoplight. She washed her hands compulsively, kind of like Jack Nicholson, and as good as it gets. But meanwhile, her actual hygiene of her body was suffering. She, throughout her adulthood, did not shower enough. She had, it seems as though she had severe BO, and it would only get worse over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Could use some Oh My Gaia. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah, that's right.
By 1985, Rusty Dann had officially had enough. He knew that she was, a little strange when they met, and even marrying her, he knew that she was, a little off,
a little different,
but it just continued to get worse. And this was not what he was looking for with his life. He had so much going on, and she was holding him back. And he moved out of their home and into an apartment. I don't know to what extent he tried to get her help. Can't say. It's hard to tell. Maybe he tried to get her to get treatment. She also refuses treatment later, so it's hard to know to what extent she was even treatable, because she was so resistant to it. Unless her family was willing to like put her in, physically restrain her and put her into treatment. I don't know if that was even possible if she was an adult.
Right. Yeah, I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can force someone into any type of treatment.
Not anymore. I mean, we covered a case. Was Nellie Bly, where they used to just straitjacket women and just throw them in an asylum for next to nothing. Those days are long gone, thankfully.
Yeah, seriously. Husbands would just be mad at their wives and take them and be like, she's crazy.
Exactly.
It's like, what the hell? That one's eye-opening.
Yeah, so he would tell her that she needed to move back with her parents in Glencoe, which would be a constant theme throughout this. She would go somewhere, it would go poorly, she would go back to Glencoe with her parents.
Yep.
At this point, Rusty put their home up for sale, and within days of Rusty moving out, he began receiving a series of hang-up phone calls, and his parents and siblings did the same. You're talking dozens of phone calls a day that were hang-ups, and then those would, over the years following, progress into straight-up threats. They would pick up the phone, and this person on the other end would be threatening to kill their family members and things along those lines. And it, to the extent to where the FBI would later get involved, because she's doing this across state lines. She would end up doing it to her ex-boyfriend in Arizona, the pre-med student. She'd begin doing this to as well from Illinois, making threats of rape and all of these things. We'll get into those. So in April of 1986, this is fucking scary. Well, no, not this one. This is one of them, but the next one's scarier. So in April of 1986, Laurie filed a police report stating that Rusty had broken into her parents' home and vandalized it. There was no evidence. Police investigated, and nothing came of it.
It's like she didn't even vandalize the home herself.
Right. They get there and they're like, this place is immaculate. What are you talking about?
Well, I already cleaned it up, but you should have seen what he did.
Right. Shortly after this, Laurie would buy a .357 Magnum handgun.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is America, though, with no priors. Anybody can buy one. Yep.
Yeah. So
this is America.
Yeah. Hey, I'm all about being able to own guns, but certainly if you have some documented mental illnesses, it should be a little more difficult.
Right. But hers wasn't, because she hasn't received help.
True.
And we're also talking, late 70s, early 80s at this point. So, yeah.
Police would learn about the purchase. So they had their sights on her. They were watching over Laurie during this time, because she's making all these reports, and also Glencoe, I don't think, is the biggest town, and so and her family being kind of prominent, I think the community was aware of her. And when they heard about this gun purchase, they allegedly went to the Wasserman home and strongly recommended to Laurie's parents that she not have access to this gun, and her parents straight up lied and said that we will keep it locked away to where she can't get to it, which was a complete lie.
Yeah, her parents pretty much just said whatever they needed to say.
Yep, to make problems go
away. They always took her side too. I mean, always. She could do no wrong to them.
Yeah. So in September of 1986, this is the scary one. This is terrifying. This is like a horror movie. In September of 1986, someone broke into Rusty Dann's apartment. Laurie's ex-husband. Well, they're still married at this time, actually, but going through the proceedings of a divorce.
They're in it. Right. They've just begun the separation.
Yeah. He's living in this apartment without her. Someone breaks into it in the middle of the night and stabs him in the chest with an ice pick, narrowly missing his heart. Oof. Nearly killed him.
Yeah, just someone.
Yeah, someone.
Yeah, who could this possibly be?
Police would investigate the stabbing, and Rusty told them about his troubled soon-to-be ex-wife, Laurie, and she, of course, had denied any involvement, and her parents likely covered for her with an alibi as well.
Yeah, and then I'm sure she believed that shit too.
Yeah, and like they would know if she snuck out of their house in the middle of the night. She's living there, and this happens in the middle of the night.
Right.
So maybe to their defense, they didn't know. They didn't know she even left or whatever.
Well, they didn't want to know. That's for sure.
Yeah. A store clerk would come forward and tell police that they reported selling an ice pick to Laurie as well. Unfortunately, there was no other witnesses in the store at the time. So. And then you couple that with the fact that police perform polygraph tests on both Laurie and Rusty, and something we alluded to earlier. Laurie passes the polygraph and Rusty fails.
Damn it.
Oh, my God.
But to be fair, Rusty just got stabbed in the chest, man. You don't think he's going to be a little bit on edge?
Yeah, and what do you expect him to say? I mean, he didn't see who did it. He was sleeping. He gets stabbed, and then the person runs out of the room.
Yeah.
So he has strong suspicions that it was Laurie, obviously, but he never saw her. So what do you want him to do in the polygraph?
Exactly.
What were the questions? Like, did Laurie stab you? Like, he's pretty damn sure, but he can't say 100%.
Exactly. And for a normal person, that's going to come across as a lie.
Yeah. So due to the fact that the polygraph's results and there being almost no other evidence other than the store clerk who sold the ice pick to Laurie, which in her defense, she could have been buying for actual ice picking or whatever the fuck you do with those things, moving ice blocks. I don't know.
They do live in, northern Chicago, so
Sure.
I guess.
They did not charge Laurie with this crime. No one got charged for it. Then Laurie decided to reach out to her pre-med ex-boyfriend in Arizona. And by this time, it had been, I think, 5 years since they had dated, and the man was now married, had a family, and Laurie began sending letters to the family trying to break it up, saying that she was pregnant with his child.
Yep, it's the longest pregnancy ever, Lauren.
Well, maybe I'm just trying to think from like the point of view of the wife in Arizona.
Okay.
She doesn't know this girl. She doesn't know they dated. She's just getting a letter saying, this other girl is pregnant with your husband's child or whatever. Like, who knows? Maybe he went on a business trip, and who knows? I'm just saying, like, it could have fucking really screwed this guy over.
Oh, definitely.
Which is what she was hoping for.
Right. Thank God he had a good relationship, and he was, across the country, because he was in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She then called the hospital in Arizona that he worked at and accused him of sexually assaulting her during an exam in the ER room.
Jesus Christ, this is sadistic.
Yeah. Thankfully, the hospital wasn't buying it either. They realized that she had no record of being there, and she lived across the country, so this was not adding up.
This is terrifying.
Yeah.
Dating is terrifying.
Right. All you need is one of these that you come across that can fuck your life up forever. Because we've talked about people like this that just have all the time in the world. She's sitting around doing nothing other than trying to fuck other people's lives up all day long while you're going to work and dealing with your family. She's just sitting there plotting on what she can do to fuck your shit up.
I know, right? She's got nothing better to do.
Nope.
And she believes it too. Once she tells herself something, it's like she believes that shit to the point where she can pass a polygraph. So
yeah. So
she's convinced.
The doctor back in Arizona, her ex, tried to, inform police of what was going on. They were doing nothing. So he hired a lawyer, smart move. And the lawyer contacted the police in Illinois and had the police in Illinois go and warn Laurie and her parents for her to stop harassing him back in Arizona.
Right.
And during this time, she was still making frequent harassing calls to Rusty Dann's family members as well. She actually had a real hard-on for Rusty's sister, Susie. I don't know if it was jealousy.
Yeah, it was. Susie was a teacher, for one.
That's what she wanted to be.
Yep, and apparently a very good mother and wife.
How dare she?
From the outside.
How fucking dare she?
How dare she?
What an evil bitch.
When
being the woman I want to be.
Being the woman I want to be, that bitch has got to go.
You and your family must die.
That's it. That's how she saw it. Instead of bettering herself,
yeah,
she just decided to eliminate the competition, who wasn't even in her life anymore. Like, you don't even have to worry about this Susie anymore. You could just go on about your life. You're not even connected to her.
No, she had her target set on Susie, man, big time.
I think she liked being part of this family, though, the Dan family, because she did keep his last name, which she didn't have to. She did. You know what I'm saying? I think she appreciated being part of this, and it made her feel good, and she hated that Rusty left her, and she just never forgave him for that.
Yeah. Well, the day that made her famous, this rampage she goes on soon in this story, she was largely targeting Susie's family during this rampage.
Yes.
She wanted to destroy this family that she was so jealous of and wanted to be Susie, I think.
Yeah, she did. Absolutely.
So in April of 1987, Laurie would tell the police that Rusty Dan had raped her with a steak knife, just furthering the accusations. They would perform a physical examination of her and find no evidence of such a rape. But amazingly, she passes another polygraph test pertaining to the crime. So did she fully believe this actually happened, or was she just that good at lying?
I don't know. I mean, she goes into that blank stare state. If she was able to go into that state, that state of calm, and then take the test, which I'm sure she was able to, she could have said anything.
Yeah. Then in May of 1987, they would finally get to divorce, mercifully for Rusty's sake.
Yeah.
They would the divorce would be finalized, and Laurie would receive a $125,000 payoff, which is the equivalent of $315,000 in today's money.
God, and she got to go back and live with her rich parents.
Yeah.
Golly.
Never had to worry about a dollar in her life, that's for sure.
No, absolutely not.
And as you mentioned a minute ago, she kept the Dan name. She liked being a part of that family, as you mentioned.
Apparently. I'm sure he wishes she would have changed it back before she did all this shit.
Yeah. So now, following the divorce, she's almost 30 years old and fresh out of a 4-year marriage that failed. and decided to go give babysitting a try for a living.
Oh God.
She always wanted to have influence over children,
no.
right? She wanted to be a teacher and now a babysitter.
Oh, great.
Which is just shocking that her parents would even allow
scenario.
this to happen. You know, like,
I know.
She's
In good
very
conscience.
disturbed. But once again, whatever gets her out of the house, if it's someone else's problem, it's not ours anymore.
I guess. Or they were just in denial. You know, they just thought, well, Laurie's working through some stuff still.
And it's like some people bring up the fact, well, she never harmed any of the kids that she babysat. And then on the other hand, it's like, well, she did set fire to one of the homes with the children fucking in it. And then she went on to shoot a kid in school. So
it's not for lack of trying.
Spoiler alert for what's coming. But yeah, she would have absolutely harmed one of these children and not even thought twice about it. She just happened not to, because she didn't have this obsession with them. And if it was Susie's kid she was babysitting, she absolutely would have killed them.
Oh, God. Yeah. Well, she tried to poison some kids she babysat as well.
Yes. The same kids that she set fire to the house.
Yeah.
While they were in it.
Man.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So she began posting flyers around town for babysitting services and soon had several families that she worked for. And it didn't take long for them to report some bizarre behavior that they noticed. These homes would notice rugs being cut apart in their home, leather sofas being ripped open. And she even stole someone's garage door opener, which is definitely scary, because then that's planning later to be able to break in easily.
I was about to say, that's the most alarming.
Yeah.
But why the hell is she cutting up rugs and sofas, man? That is so freaking weird.
Same reason she puts her makeup in the microwave and puts wet clothes all over the house.
Right. I think she ended up stashing meat and food in the sofas as well at one house.
That was at a college. That was at.
Okay.
She ends up going back to Northwestern, and I think that's where she does that. Is in like the common areas at the college. Stashes meat in the. I mean. She's disturbed. It's not funny on one hand, but it's also of all things to do, that is so bizarre.
I was just thinking about being the person that finds it, being like, what is the smell in this couch? It smells like rotten meat. Jeez, is this a ham? What the?
Yeah, it's rotten meat. What the fuck?
Right? Wait, what the fuck? Put the rotten meat in the couch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Yeah, so with these strange happenings at the homes that she's babysitting being reported, she would deny it all once again, and her parents would once again step in to pay for what was damaged and missing. And Laurie then decided it was finally time for her to finish her degree. It had been many years since she dropped out, and she would re-enroll back at Northwestern, where she had last gone to college. And her father even paid some extra to get her a solo dorm on campus, knowing that her being bunked up with someone was probably not a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And
but
here
yet you still keep sending her into these situations.
Yeah. And while back at Northwestern, her behavior just hits new heights during her second stint. It's got to be that much harder for her to connect. She's now 30 years old, basically, and, much older than a lot of the students. And she's already had a failed marriage and all of this. And her mental illness is just getting worse. This is where she's caught stuffing meat into furniture in common areas, wandering the halls nude, and filling other students' mailboxes with garbage that she had collected. Very bizarre, mentally ill behavior.
She's obviously unraveling here. Like this is sad.
And her parents are just allowing her to be pawned off on someone else, making it their problem. They know damn well she was not going to go to Northwestern and this is going to go well. She's going to get her degree and everything's going to come together.
This was the last straw, man. She needed help here. She really did. And they failed her in this instance, in my opinion.
Her dorm was so filthy and disgusting. Like there was literally I believe urine and feces in the room, like human. And like to the point where it literally it became like a hazmat situation where Northwestern would end up calling her parents and telling them that her time was up here, that they couldn't handle her anymore. And her father once again paid for her damages and took her back home. Meanwhile, her dorm that she was in had to be cordoned off and cleaned, like I said, with people in hazmat suits. It was that disgusting. She was actually sleeping in her car because she couldn't even sleep in her own filth. It was that bad.
My God. Yeah, that's crazy, man.
And amazingly, once back in Glencoe, living with her parents, she would go back to babysitting. Because that's
perfect.
What you do when you're super disturbed.
Right.
You can't even deal with yourself. You should go take care of other people's children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm just amazed she gets these jobs. Probably, though, because of her past and where she's from, in the affluent family, in the affluent area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It
Her
looks
parents
good
probably
on
sold
paper.
her to other families.
Yeah,
You know, like,
that's what I'm saying. It looks good on paper. Her resume looked great.
yeah. So in the summer of 1987, Laurie's father would once again, just try to get rid of her. He would rent her an apartment in Evanston, Illinois. Clearly, she can't manage her own life right now. So let's
Right?
go and get her
What are you
her own
doing?
apartment, out of sight, out of mind.
There you go.
And
That'll help.
at this apartment building, she would spend entire days riding the elevator up and down,
My
and
God.
would wear gloves to avoid touching anything metal.
That sounds like a nightmare. I think you're just asking it to get stuck in an elevator riding it that much.
Well, yeah, not only that, but like,
I
does
don't
anyone
like riding
enjoy
elevators.
elevators? It's just like a matter
what
of
I'm
getting to
saying.
where you got to go. My God, it sounds like hell just riding up an elevator up and down.
That's what I'm saying. I don't even like taking the elevator. Most of the time, I'll take an elevator because I'm like, where are the stairs?
Yeah,
Oh,
they're stuffy.
Oh, they're way over there.
You're just like, ugh. Yeah, I don't like them.
I don't like them either, man. I definitely wouldn't be riding it all day long.
No.
Chances of it breaking down, getting stuck, too high for me. No way.
Now, this is the first we've heard of her actually getting treatment. While at this apartment, Laurie was being managed by a personal psychiatrist. Maybe her parents finally stepped in and said,
Okay.
look, we'll get you this apartment, but you have to get regular treatment from the psychiatrist.
Right.
But then in November, her parents moved her to housing in Wisconsin, where she was then managed by even more professionals. She began seeing a new psychiatrist while in Wisconsin, also a behavioral therapist, and she was also prescribed clomipramine. I don't know.
Clomipramine?
Clomipramine. Anyways,
It's an OCD medication.
Yeah,
right?
it's an OCD medication. It's also an antidepressant. And it seemed to do no good. It did not. I don't know if she actually wasn't taking it or what, but her behavior did not change. She also buys 2 more guns during this time while in Wisconsin. She purchases a 32 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver and then another 22 caliber Beretta, which at this point she's being treated by 3 different, by medication and by 2 different professionals. Should not be allowed to buy a weapon. She's on an antidepressant. She's being treated by multiple professionals.
I agree. But
She's
then again,
got a history
no
of
record,
threatening
though.
people over the phone. Like, she just absolutely, but I guess.
But she's not a felon, is what I'm saying. So, I mean, how do you.
I'd like to think in today's age, with all of the gun violence that's happening and everything, like she would definitely be on some sort of a list as far as like, you not sell this woman a weapon.
Right. But then you could just go to a gun show and just buy one or something. There's always ways of obtaining them.
People can gift you a gun as well.
Private market. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It doesn't have to be in your name.
Yeah.
Yep.
So her various treatments did not seem to help as she continued all of her same strange behaviors. She had an obsession with good and bad numbers. And it's also believed she may be bulimic during this time. She had an eating disorder. She was less than 100 pounds and still making hundreds of phone calls a day to exes and the family of members of exes. And now they were much more threatening, saying she would kill members of the family. And this is where the FBI starts to get their eyes on her. Like we said, these were phone calls that were going across state lines with serious death threats being involved. So the FBI is now aware of her and would soon come to try and interview her. And it would be Rusty Dan's sister, Susie, we mentioned earlier, who bore the brunt of many of these threatening calls. She would call and threaten to harm Susie's children, unprovoked, for no reason. And then,
well, like we said, Susie made her feel inferior. Susie had her life.
Yeah.
That's what she wanted. She just couldn't let that shit go.
Yeah. Yeah. The Dan family, her ex-husband's family would continue to report these calls to the police. And they even requested, the police at this point would request the Wasserman's phone bill, which included Laurie's phone records on it. And the Wasserman family turned down their request, would not hand over. And I guess at this time, the police must not have had the power to override that and say, we're going to get a court order to obtain these phone records or call the phone company and say, we're the police, we need these records. You would think that would be the way that would go, but they just said no, and that was that.
Well, there you go.
Because they would have definitely had clear evidence that she was the one making all these phone calls. I'm sure she was making a ton of these phone calls from the Wasserman's home itself, when she was there.
I was about to say, well, just the fact that they denied it too, it speaks volumes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you got nothing to hide, let us see them.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
that helped put her more on the target, more target on her, I would say, at least.
Yeah. So in March of 1988, Laurie would stop attending her appointments with the psychiatrist and behavioral therapist. She would steal books from the library on poisonings or on different poisons. She would dilute arsenic and other chemicals from a lab, and she also shoplifted clothes and wigs to disguise herself and was arrested for theft on one occasion. So she's ramping up. She's ramping up. You can tell something's coming. Both her psychiatrist and her father tried to persuade her to enter the hospital as an inpatient, but she refused. She was an adult during this time. She couldn't be just restrained and thrown into a hospital.
Right. She's over 30 years old.
Yeah. Then in May of 1988, a janitor in the apartment building where she was living in Wisconsin found her lying in a maintenance room under a trash bag, naked and in the fetal position. Her parents are contacted, and once again, she's brought back to her home in Glencoe, to their home in Glencoe.
Right. Yeah, she's really unraveling here.
And the timing of that is interesting because the FBI arrived in Madison, Wisconsin, where her apartment was the next day after that whole event happened, and they were basically about to question her for those threatening phone calls.
Damn, just one
and
day
they would
late.
never get the chance because she would be a woman of action at this point. She was going to carry out some sort of a heinous plan.
Apparently.
Because back in Glencoe, she suddenly began heavily baking, something she had never shown any interest in the past, but now she had a new motivation for it. She made several trays of Rice Krispie treats that she would deliver to her old fraternity house in Evanston. It's odd because she doesn't know any of these girls. She's long out of college. Her sorority, she was with all of the people that were in that at the time, long graduated, have, their own life.
That's what I was about to say.
She's just randomly trying to harm people that happen to go to the same sorority as her.
Yeah, it's weird.
Very odd behavior.
Absolutely. It's just like she just can't get past that point in her life. I think that's probably where she blamed her life going wrong, was around that time.
Perhaps.
And she just couldn't get past that. And so she just wanted to punish the people who succeeded in that area. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not for us to diagnose, but it's pretty crazy.
These Rice Krispie treats that she brought to that sorority, she had obviously done something to them. She had laced them with arsenic that she had purchased while in Wisconsin. And anyone that tried these almost immediately spit out the first bite due to them tasting terrible. And thankfully, no one was injured.
Yeah, thank God. Thank God she's terrible at cooking even Rice Krispie treats. Even though they don't even have to be cooked, do they? Don't you just mix marshmallows and you just got to melt the marshmallow and then you put it in the fridge, don't you?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any baking going on.
Yeah, you're not even baking. You just melt the marshmallow.
I imagine arsenic in itself just has a very probably bitter taste. It probably tastes like ass.
Thank God I haven't tasted it before.
Yeah. True.
But yeah, I would imagine so.
No, yeah. I think there's like unflavored cyanide, obviously, that, people can consume, and that would have been definitely more deadly too. I think the amounts of arsenic I read that she was mixing in was diluted to the point where it would have maybe made someone mildly sick, but it wouldn't have killed anyone anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, she wasn't the best at math. Spelling was her strong suit, remember?
True.
Yeah.
So during the days before May 20, 1988, Laurie prepared rice cereal snacks and juice boxes poisoned with diluted arsenic that she had stolen in Madison. She mailed them to a former acquaintance, ex-babysitting clients, her psychiatrist, Russell Dann, and others. You imagine this, you married a woman who was severely mentally ill. She stabbed you with an ice pick in the middle of the night. She's able to lie and polygraphs and get away with it. And then she ships you some juice boxes and Rice Krispie treats, and you just open them up and just like, oh, these are from my ex-wife who's fucking a psycho.
Thank you so much.
I'm just gonna gobble these up. I would immediately not touch the package and send it into a lab to be tested is what I would do.
Seriously, I wouldn't even unwrap that shit.
Right, exactly. I was I'd be thinking this is a bomb when I get this package.
Right. You think she just finally decided to forgive and forget?
Right.
Not a chance, bud.
So let's get into the day. This is obviously ramping up. Her behavior's only getting worse. And this all culminates on the morning of May 20th, when she personally delivers some snacks and juice samples to acquaintances and families for whom she had babysat. Some of them she had not seen for years. Other snacks were delivered to several fraternity houses and Leverone Hall at Northwestern University. Notes were attached to some of these deliveries. The drinks were often leaking, and the squares of Rice Krispie were unpleasant tasting. So few were actually consumed. And in addition, the arsenic, as I mentioned, was highly diluted, and nobody became seriously ill, even if they did consume it.
Right.
However, at about 9 a.m. on that same day, she arrives at the home of the Rush family, a former babysitting client in Winnetka, Illinois. And she was just out of the blue, just shows up and wants to babysit the kids. No contact prior. And the family is like, well, we're moving actually, so we're kind of good. And she brings up the fact that there's a fair in town the following day, and she's like, well, while you guys are packing up to move, I can take your boys to the fair tomorrow.
Hell no.
Well, they were like, that would actually be quite convenient for us. It would help us pack up without them around. And they agree. And so so they would actually agree to let her take them to the fair. And instead, she would obviously not take them to the fair and have a jolly old time. And that was that. She would take them to Ravinia Elementary School in Highland Park, Illinois, where she believed that both of her former sister-in-law's 2 sons were enrolled. So Susie,
Gosh, she's
Susie's
still on
kids.
Susie.
Still on Susie. And I think only one of the children were there. I don't think the other one attended. And she leaves the 2 children that she's babysitting. And I just don't get why she wanted to bring these kids along. She's just more carnage. She was planning on killing them at the end too, or what was the deal with that? I guess.
Or maybe it helps take the
suspicion out of showing up to elementary schools unannounced.
Yeah. Maybe you show up with kids in the car, you look like a lot less of a threat, even if you leave them in the car and go in.
Yeah.
I just don't get how she was able to walk around this elementary school. I mean, I get it. It was
different
like
time,
this day
man.
and age.
Different time.
This day and age, that
dude,
shit never happens.
Our elementary schools in the early 90s, you could just walk in. There was no security.
Yeah.
There was no locked doors. You could literally just walk in.
That's true.
And walk into a classroom if you wanted to.
No doubt. My 5th grade classrooms at my elementary school had exterior doors.
Yeah.
From each classroom. Yeah. For each classroom. You could go right out of the classroom outdoors.
Oh, yeah.
Every single classroom.
Yeah.
So, somebody could come right in that exterior door and be in a classroom in no time.
Mm-hmm. So she shows up to this elementary school where she believes Susie's kids are. She enters the school and tries to detonate a firebomb, quote unquote, which was actually just a Ziploc bag filled with gasoline. She opens it like a side door and throws in this firebomb, quote unquote, and it is quickly put out by a staff member. And there's basically all that was left was a little black spot on the floor, a reminder of this insane woman. She then leaves there after the small fire she was set was subsequently discovered by students and quickly extinguished by a teacher. She then drove to a local daycare attended by her ex-sister-in-law's daughter and tried to enter the building with a plastic can of gasoline, but was stopped by staff. So that'll get some attention. You're walking into a daycare with a can of gasoline. A strange person.
What was her excuse? I just want to know what she said to that person. Ma'am, you can't bring that gasoline.
I doubt she said anything. She probably gave them that blank stare and then turned around and walked out.
Probably. What can you say?
Right.
You were just hoping to sneak past everybody, apparently.
Mm-hmm. That could have gone very terribly because that is a much more effective, quote unquote, firebomb, a can of gasoline. Yeah. You light that thing in there and the whole building probably goes up.
Yeah, I'm glad she didn't think that through and, put the can in a bag or something.
I mean, put it in a diaper bag or something like that.
Right. That would have been so easily carried in. But I'm glad she wasn't in her right state of mind here because a lot of lives could have been lost.
So next, Laurie would drive the children that she was babysitting back to their home and offer them some arsenic poisoned milk.
Jesus.
But the boys would spit the milk out because it tasted strange to them.
Thank God.
Even diluted, that could have been very dangerous for young children to be drinking.
Absolutely, man. So, absolutely.
Then once at their home, she would lure them downstairs where the mother was, I think, in the basement doing laundry or something. And so she would lure them down there to meet with their mom. And then the mom was obviously surprised to see them back so soon. She was gone for like an hour. She had made those couple trips to the daycare and the elementary school and then was already back.
Yeah.
The kids come running down the stairs to see their mom. And next thing you know, the basement stairs are being set on fire. She sets fire to the basement while they're trapped in there. And thankfully, there was a window in the basement, as there usually is, and they were able to escape out of the window.
It's like she just wanted to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
Just anybody.
She's just lashing out, man. Just anybody in her way. She was just done.
Just anybody. Or maybe it was kids and mothers in particular.
Yes. It did seem like, dude, that is so true. That's exactly what it was, right?
I guess so. It was like anytime she saw a mother with the children or a teacher with children, it just infuriated her.
Right?
Because that was the two things she wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just never going to have that, apparently. It was just not in the cards.
Such a good point. That was absolutely her target, was just women and children.
Yeah.
Caretakers and children.
Absolutely.
So then she drives 3.5 blocks to Hubbard Woods Elementary School with 3 handguns in her possession.
God damn.
And she would enter this school unabated with guns in her possession and wander into a 2nd grade classroom for a short while. She would then leave. Walking around the school, she would find a boy in the corridor, push him into the boys' washroom, the bathroom, and shoot him with a 22 caliber semi-automatic Beretta pistol. So now she is officially gone violent. I mean, she's had some half-hearted attempts here, and now it's just full on. She's just progressed into, all right, it's killing time. It's said that her 357 Magnum revolver jammed about this time, which just doesn't add up to me. I think she did something wrong, because revolvers, typically that's their selling point, is they don't jam, you know, and I don't think she'd ever even used this gun before. I don't know if the safety was on, or she didn't pull the hammer, whatever she did. But thankfully the gun did not fire when she tried to fire that at two other boys. She threw that 357 mag into the trash can along with its spare ammunition. The boys would run out of the bathroom and raise the alarm. So they run out saying there's a crazy woman shooting people in here. She then re-entered the second grade classroom where students were working in groups on a bicycle safety test. She ordered all the children into the corner of the room, at which point the teacher realized something was wrong. When she came in and sat down, the teacher was kind of like, okay, maybe this is someone's mom, or who knows. Wasn't all that. She just continued teaching class. But at this point, when she pulls out a gun and is ordering kids into the corner, the teacher, being a hero, you know, tries to fight with her with that gun in an attempt to disarm Laurie, managing to unload the Beretta in the struggle. So I'm guessing Laurie starts shooting the gun. She still had one gun left, the 32 Smith & Wesson, from the waistband of her shorts, and aims it at several groups of students. She then shoots 5 children, killing 8-year-old Nick Corwin and wounding 2 girls and 2 boys before fleeing in her car. Just a horrendous scene. Yeah,
absolutely. And the teacher, props to the teacher, man, for doing all they could.
Yeah.
You know, disarmed her one time, unloaded the gun at the same time. Like, props to them.
Yeah.
But they couldn't have known that she had another weapon, you know what I mean? And then I'm sure she acted so quickly at that point.
To think only one child died in this whole scenario, where she shot, like 7 or 8 kids, including the one kid that she had shot in the bathroom, and then the 5 in here.
Luckily, she only used a 22 caliber on the one in the bathroom. He would have probably been another casualty.
Yeah.
That's horrific.
Yeah, you'd think if she had used that 357 Magnum from the jump on that kid in the bathroom, he would definitely be gone.
Yep.
So she was prevented from leaving the school due to a coincidence. There was the roads were closed for a funeral entourage, which is kind of odd and dark in its own way. Like, she's out trying to kill people, and that this funeral gets in her way. May have saved lives, really, when you think about it. Because if she's able to get out of there, instead she ends up, you know, barging into someone's home, and there's a standoff there. But who knows where she goes next? Does she go immediately to another school and kill more kids? Like, who knows?
Exactly. I mean, she's on a rampage. She has nothing to lose at this point in her mind.
Oh no, I think she's planning on ending her own life on this day, and we see that play out.
Yeah.
So definitely nothing to lose. So she decides to drive her car backwards down the nearby street, which dead-ended into a private drive. Abandoning her car here, she removes her bloodstained shorts and tied a blue garbage bag around her waist. With her 2 remaining guns, she made her way through the woods. So she must have reobtained that gun that the teacher fought with her for, or she had just emptied the cartridges in it and maybe reloaded it. She would make her way through the woods at this dead end and come upon the house of the Andrew family. And she would enter the home and meet with a mother and her 22-year-old son, or 20-year-old son, who was, from what I heard, an athlete, a swimmer. And she would confront these two in the kitchen of this home, and she would play the victim card, saying she was raped and had shot the rapist in the struggle. Man,
that's a really good
woman.
That's actually a really good
wearing
lie.
A trash bag and having 2 guns on her possession, telling this story.
I mean, it's a pretty good lie because she doesn't have pants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That is, it's like, why else would this woman be running down the street in a garbage bag?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to think that at first, and they have no reason not to believe her. And I'm sure she was very convincing.
Yeah. She's a career liar. She's done it for many years. She can literally fool polygraph tests. So, Yeah. So initially it works, and the Andrews family were sympathetic and tried to convince her that she wouldn't be afraid of the police because she had acted in self-defense. Mrs. Andrew gave Laurie a pair of her daughter's pants to wear, and while she was putting them on, the son, Philip, was able to pick up and put the Beretta that she had sat down in his pocket, kind of securing that just in case. He then suggested that she call her family, and she agreed, calling her mother, telling her that she had done something terrible. Her mother's trying to talk her down, saying, "Don't harm anyone else, Laurie." And the son, Philip, would take the phone and explain the story about the rape and the shooting, suggested that, Mrs. Wasserman, the mother, should come and get her. And Mrs. Wasserman said she could not come to the home because she did not have a car, which is pretty crazy, because like you can't tell me you can't pick up the phone and get someone to go and pick up your daughter before she hurts someone else. Like,
right. Take a cab. You're rich.
Right.
What are you doing?
Or for fuck's sake, call the police. Your daughter's mental state. She's harming people.
Right.
Nonetheless, the police had already been called.
Bullshit.
The police had already been called because of what had gone down at the elementary school just nearby.
Right.
And this whole community was on alert to the point where Mr. Andrew, the father and patriarch of the home, had actually become so concerned about this, shooter on the loose that had just targeted the elementary school right near his home, actually left work and came home to find this woman in his house with what was going on, very odd.
Absolutely.
And she now has the second gun as well. She called her mother again, and at this time, Mr. Andrew spoke with Mrs. Wasserman, asking her to persuade Laurie to give up the gun that she now had. And while Laurie spoke with her mother, Mrs. Andrew left the home and alerted the police. So now the police are on to the fact that she is held up in this home. Mr. Andrew then told Laurie that he would not remain in the house if she did not put the gun down, and he also left the home, leaving his 20-year-old son, Philip, to stay. Laurie ordered that Philip stay with her, which... I don't know. I can't say what I would do in this position, but yeah, as the father, I'm staying too. If my son is forced to stay, I'm staying too.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way I'm leaving my kid. I don't care if he's 20. I don't care if he's 50.
Yeah.
I'm not leaving him with somebody else
with a gun.
who is dangerous.
Disturbed woman with a gun. And it's got to be clear to them at this point that she was the one that had been doing the shooting at the elementary school, right? Like, the jig's up. You're not just some random rape victim. Like, that's way too much of a coincidence.
Yep.
So just before noon, seeing the police advancing on the home, Laurie would shoot Philip, 20-year-old Philip, in the chest. He managed to escape out the back door before collapsing and being rescued by the police and ambulance personnel, and thankfully he would later recover from his injuries. And now with the home surrounded, Laurie went upstairs to a bedroom. The Wassermans and Rusty Dan were brought to the house, so they're trying to bring people that she knows to try and coax her out of the home, her ex-husband.
Right. Yeah.
But at about 7 p.m., an assault team would enter the home while Mr. Wasserman attempted to get Laurie's attention with a bullhorn. The police would find that it had been over for a while. She'd probably shot herself hours ago. They found her lifeless body with a bullet hole through her mouth into her brain, and she had ended her life. And
God,
that was it. The rampage went on for a matter of hours. And she'd finally lashed out for all the years of whatever she was going through and wanted to make others pay, specifically people that she envied. Mothers of children and teachers of children. And some would blame her family for defending and protecting her in spite of signs of her deteriorating mental health. Probably rightfully so. It seems like more could have been done earlier on to prevent it from spiraling to the point where it got to where when she finally got treatment, she was too far gone.
She was nearing 30, if not 30 years old,
and
before they started pushing her.
Almost 2 decades at that point.
Exactly. And I mean, you should have this help should have been brought on, like we talked about, the formative years.
Mm-hmm.
Early high school, college, when we found that she was unable to be any part of society. Like, they should have been trying to get her help then, instead of just pushing new things to keep her busy and distracted until it just got out of hand. But I mean, as a parent, it's hard to see the flaws in your own children. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. Especially then, when mental illness there was no light on mental illness like there is now.
Right.
It's like we know the signs nowadays. We know to look out for. We know when something is off kilter and something needs to be checked out. But like in the 70s and the 80s, man, come on. They were just whooping kids. Shut up. Behave. Stop fidgeting. You know what I mean? It's sad. But it was a perfect storm.
Yeah. Yeah. And following the incident, her parents would quickly, they would allow police to do a quick search of her bedroom, not an extensive search. And then they would allegedly clean up the room themselves. And it's not known what exactly they were trying to disguise within her room, more evidence of her plots and plans to harm people, maybe.
Right.
But the police would later be ridiculed for not cordoning off her room immediately following the incidents and doing a complete search of it. Who knows what they would have found?
Well, I feel like it's all pretty much out there.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if you needed more evidence into the horrible things that she did. And I don't think her parents wanted any more publicity. They thought our daughter's dead. I kind of understand it from a parent standpoint. They're like, my daughter's dead. She paid the ultimate price. However it got there, whatever. Like there's no sense in condemning the family name or her anymore after death. You know what I mean? But I disagree. I feel like there could have been things that could have gave other family members closure and could have been more signs that help people in the future. You know, if certain things that they found in her room.
There might have been evidence that her parents, you know, could have seen more coming. Like maybe they knew of some like plans that she was going to harm people and they were just overlooking it, you know, and didn't think she would actually do it.
That's a possibility too. Yeah, they didn't want the police finding things that implicated them.
Yeah.
Where they could have stepped in, and they didn't want to be an accessory to this awful freaking charade.
Crime spree.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. I don't know of a good segue from that into deodorant, but let's talk about our sponsors, Oh My Gaia.
Right. Don't be like Laurie Dann. Smell good. Use Oh My Gaia. Right. Yeah. Is that pretty good?
That's good enough, I suppose.
Is that pretty good? Okay.
The darker the case, the harder it is to segue into a sponsor, you know?
No doubt.
Unless it's something like BetterHelp or something for mental health. It'd be a good episode to have like a mental health sponsor. Check out BetterHelp. Yeah. It's not even an actual sponsor, but if you're having some struggles internally, there's a lot more avenues nowadays than there was for Laurie for you to be able to get help even without other people helping you to get help. You can help yourself very easily nowadays. So
yeah, from the comfort of your own house.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But something else you can get delivered to your house in the comfort of your own house is deodorant and beard oils and scented oils from Oh My Gaia.
Yep.
Oh My Gaia is an innovative, all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products. And their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while still maintaining effectiveness. And like I said, at Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients. And guys, there's tons of scents to choose from vanilla, cherry almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, coconut, dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack, honeysuckle, fireside, bergamot, amber, pear. And we also have our own scent, True Crime Pine. And because you guys are True Crime Guys listeners, you can use the code to get 15% off your order. And that code is CREEPER for 15% off at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram or ohmygaia.com. That's ohmygaia.com. Again, that's code word CREEPER for 15% off your order, guys. If you're looking for a natural deodorant, beard oil, or scented oil, give Oh My Gaia a chance. You will not regret it. Tons of happy customers.
That's right.
Go check them out.
Tons of happy customers of our other weekly sponsor, Tonic, as well. And that same code word, CREEPER, will get you 20% off your order over at tonicvibes.com. And I highly recommend their products. We use these daily. There's so many different ways that CBD can help you, whether it's, chronic pain, just with overall health and with mental health as well. It can help you with anxiety and things like that, help you get better sleep. So go check out tonicvibes.com, where their farm-to-bottle CBD plus botanical blends are uniquely formulated to provide targeted support where you need it most. Each and every one of their high-quality ingredients is thoughtfully selected for its ability to support and enhance the benefits of CBD, resulting in a more effective, well-rounded, and consistent wellness solution for your mind and body. They have a bunch of different blends, but Chill Tonic's been one of my favorite to help me get sleep at night. It has ashwagandha, lemon balm, and passion fruit blended into it for a super calming effect. They also use black seed oil in some of their blends, which is an antioxidant powerhouse. And it's easy to verify the quality of their products. They have a microchip in the packaging. You download an app, you tap your phone on there, and it'll bring you to information about what's in that bottle of what you're consuming. Third-party lab reports, product information, details about their farm, and even blog posts to help provide you with education on CBD. So with values rooted in quality, integrity, and sustainability, Tonic is committed to creating plant-based wellness products that are good for you, good for the planet. Visit tonicvibes.com, 20% off using the code word CREEPER. Check it out.
That's right.
That's right, guys.
They
have vape pens. They have tinctures. They have edibles. Like you name it. Pre-rolls, even if you you like to smoke. So whatever you need.
That's right. CBD and CBG pre-rolls.
Yep.
Guys, very high quality.
Yep.
Very high quality. All right. Also, check out Patreon.
That's right.
Guys, if you like what we do here at True Crime Guys, if you want to support the show and support the network, check out patreon.com/truecrimeguys. And for $2 a month, you guys can get access to all of our Vault episodes, where the first 50 episodes that we did on True Crime Guys proper is there in the vault waiting for you, as well as 70 plus True Crime Guys Patreon exclusive episodes that have not been released on the free platform. And if you bump up to the $5 tier, you can get access to literally everything else. You get access to the vault and the premium episodes, as well as Just the Banter, which me and Lauren are about to record. We're getting back to Just the Banter here at the first of the year, as well as Sandu Stories, Strange Shorts, Lauren's 5-minute murder show, Higher Thoughts, and everything. Like we said, everything we create is on the $5 tier. And guys, you can pay up front for a year and you get a 10% discount. If you'd rather do that, you ain't got to worry about getting your card hit every month. And also now Patreon has incorporated a new policy where you pay every month on the day you sign up. So Patreon used to be kind of aggravating, where you would pay on the 1st no matter what. So if you signed up on January 31st, you would pay for a full month, and then on February 1st, you would pay for another full month. So now you don't do that anymore. You pay on the day that you sign up, so you get a full month's of content right up front.
Nice.
So again, that's patreon.com/truecrimeguys. There is links right below the description of the episode, as well as links to our YouTube, right? Go check us out on YouTube. This episode is on YouTube with video and pictures pertaining to the case. And of course, you can see Lauren and I put faces to the names. And please subscribe, tell your friends. Go check us out on social media at True Crime Guys. And yeah, that's pretty much it, right?
That about does it. We'll see you next week for another Freeloader episode. Thank you for listening. Keep creeping.
Keep creeping, guys. From the minds of True Crime Guys, come
TCG Weekly. If you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to check out all the other programs on the TCG network. Every Wednesday, a new episode of True Crime Guys proper, Strange and Unexplained on Mondays, and Full House Fantasy Football on Fridays to start your weekend. And if those aren't enough, head on over to our Patreon account, where you can have access to hundreds of hours of content, including older episodes and other Patreon exclusives like Strange Shorts, Sandu Stories, Higher Thoughts, and the 5-minute murder show. But until next time, guys, keep creeping. Hey, how do you shut this thing off? Over?
You hush your mouth, boy.